The obsidian chamber thrummed with a low, resonant frequency that mirrored the anxieties of the assembled Xylar Council. Above, a holographic projection shimmered, casting an eerie blue glow upon their chitinous faces. It depicted a single vessel, adrift in the void between galaxies, an anomaly that had disrupted the Xylar's carefully constructed understanding of the cosmos. The vessel was undeniably Terran, its design echoing the primitive, almost barbaric aesthetics that had been catalogued during their brief and largely ignored initial contact centuries ago. But it was the sheer impossibility of its location, the unfathomable distance it had traversed, that held the Council captive in a state of perplexed dread. Elder Lyra, her mandibles clicking softly, broke the tense silence. "Explain again the sensor readings, Archivist." Her voice, amplified by the chamber's acoustics, carried the weight of millennia of Xylar history. The Archivist, a being of meticulous detail and unwavering logic, adjusted his optic lenses. "The vessel exhibits a temporal distortion field, Elder. It is unstable. Our calculations suggest it originated from a period predating the Terran's acknowledged technological capabilities by several millennia. Moreover, the energy signature is unlike anything we have ever encountered. It is archaic, yet exponentially more powerful than anything in our current arsenal." Counselor Vorath, a known skeptic of anything that challenged the established order, scoffed. "Temporal distortion? Archaic power? These are the ramblings of a theorist, not the findings of a scientist. The Terrans are a primitive species, barely capable of interstellar travel within their own star system. This must be a fabrication, an illusion perpetrated by some unknown entity." Lyra turned her multifaceted eyes towards Vorath, her gaze unwavering. "We have dismissed the Terrans for too long, Counselor. Their chaotic nature, their unpredictable evolution has always been a source of discomfort. But to ignore the evidence before us would be a far greater folly. This vessel exists. It is undeniably Terran, and it represents a paradox that threatens the very foundations of our understanding." The holographic projection shifted, displaying internal scans of the Terran vessel, empty corridors, deactivated systems, and a single unidentifiable artifact at the heart of the ship. "The vessel is derelict," the Archivist continued, his voice laced with caution. "There are no life signs, but the artifact, it pulses with the same anomalous energy signature. We cannot determine its purpose, its origin, or its potential threat." Fear, a sensation rarely acknowledged within the Stoic Xylar Council, began to permeate the chamber. The Terrans, a species relegated to the fringes of their galactic awareness, had suddenly presented a riddle that threatened to unravel the carefully woven tapestry of their existence. The question was not simply how this vessel came to be, but what its presence implied about the true nature of reality, about the potential for a species they had so carelessly dismissed. The Xylar had always prided themselves on their logical approach to the universe, their meticulous cataloging of all known phenomena. But the Terrans defied categorization. Their history was a chaotic blend of technological leaps and societal collapses, their culture a bewildering mix of artistry and violence. They were an unpredictable variable in a universe the Xylar desperately sought to control. Elder Lyra, sensing the growing unease within the council, raised a hand, silencing the murmurs that had begun to ripple through the chamber. "We must proceed with caution. I propose a reconnaissance mission. A small, heavily shielded vessel equipped with advanced scanning technology. We will observe the Terran vessel, analyze the artifact, and attempt to ascertain the nature of the temporal distortion field. Under no circumstances are we to engage the vessel directly. Our priority is to gather information, not to provoke an unknown threat." The proposal met with cautious approval. Even Vorath, despite his skepticism, recognized the necessity of understanding the anomaly. The Terran vessel, adrift in the void, had become a symbol of their own ignorance, a stark reminder of the vastness of the cosmos and the limitations of their knowledge. They had underestimated the Terrans, a mistake that now threatened to have unforeseen consequences. As the Xylar reconnaissance vessel, the Silent Observer, approached the derelict Terran warship, Commander Zara felt a knot of apprehension tighten in her thorax. The readings were even more perplexing than the initial scans had indicated. The temporal distortion field was not merely localized to the vessel. It seemed to warp the very fabric of space-time around it, creating a pocket of distorted reality. "Maintain maximum distance," Zara ordered, her voice crisp and professional. "Initiate long-range scans of the artifact. I want to know everything about it." The Silent Observer was a marvel of Xylar technology, equipped with sensors capable of detecting even the faintest energy signatures. But as it scanned the Terran artifact, the readings became increasingly erratic. The energy signature fluctuated wildly, shifting between known and unknown frequencies, defying all attempts at analysis. "Commander," the sensor officer reported, his voice strained. "The artifact is resonating. It is responding to our scans. The temporal distortion field is intensifying." Zara felt a chill run through her exoskeleton. The Terran vessel was not merely a derelict relic. It was something far more complex, something far more dangerous. "Disengage the scanners," she commanded. "Prepare for immediate withdrawal." But it was too late. As the silent observer turned to retreat, the artifact emitted a pulse of energy, a wave of temporal distortion that engulfed the Xylar vessel. Zara felt a disorienting sensation, a blurring of time and space, as the reality around her fractured and reformed. When the silent observer regained its bearings, it was no longer in the void between galaxies. It was surrounded by stars, by constellations that were both familiar and alien. The sensor readings were incomprehensible. The vessel was adrift in a sea of temporal chaos, lost in a reality that defied all logic. Zara stared out at the swirling nebulae, her multifaceted eyes wide with a mixture of terror and awe. The Terran vessel had not merely traversed space, it had traversed time, and in doing so, it had revealed a truth that shattered the Xylar's understanding of the universe. The Terrans, the species they had so carelessly dismissed, possessed a power that transcended their comprehension, a power that could unravel the very fabric of reality. On Earth, in a hidden facility deep beneath the Nevada desert, Dr. Aris Thorne watched the sensor readings with a grim satisfaction. The Xylar reconnaissance vessel had taken the bait, just as they had predicted. The derelict warship, a prototype time-displacement vessel from a forgotten era, had served its purpose. "They're inside," Aris said, his voice echoing through the sterile chamber. "The temporal trap has been sprung." General Mallory, a hardened veteran of countless conflicts, stood beside Aris, his expression a mask of stoic resolve. "Are you certain this will work, Doctor? Tampering with time, it's a dangerous game." Aris turned to the general, his eyes filled with a mixture of determination and regret. "It's the only way, General. The Xylar are a threat to humanity. Their expansionist ambitions, their rigid adherence to logic will eventually lead to our subjugation. We cannot allow that to happen." The warship, codenamed Kronos, was a gamble, a desperate attempt to rewrite history and secure humanity's future. Aris had discovered the schematics in a forgotten archive, a testament to a past civilization that had mastered time travel but had ultimately destroyed itself. He had resurrected the technology, knowing the risks, knowing the potential consequences. "What about the temporal paradoxes?" Mallory asked, his brow furrowed with concern. "The potential for altering the timeline, it could unravel everything." Aris sighed, running a hand through his thinning hair. "There will be paradoxes, General, inevitably, but we have taken precautions. The temporal displacement field is designed to minimize the impact on the primary timeline. The changes will be subtle but significant." The plan was audacious, bordering on insane. They intended to use the Kronos to send a message back in time, to alter the Xylar's perception of humanity, to dissuade them from ever considering Earth as a potential conquest. The message was encoded within the artifact, a carefully crafted blend of technological data, historical records, and psychological manipulation. It was designed to instill fear, respect, and ultimately, a sense of caution when dealing with humanity. "Prepare to transmit the message," Aris ordered, his voice firm. "Initiate temporal anchoring sequence. We are about to rewrite history." As the artifact pulsed with energy, a ripple spread through the temporal distortion field, reaching back through the centuries, impacting the Xylar's perception of reality. The Xylar Council, observing the readings from the silent observer, felt a wave of disorientation, a blurring of their memories, a subtle shift in their understanding of humanity. Elder Lyra, her multifaceted eyes narrowed in confusion, turned to the archivist. "The historical records, they have changed. The Terrans, they are not as primitive as we believed. They possess a latent potential, a capacity for innovation and destruction that we had underestimated." Counselor Vorath, his skepticism shaken by the inexplicable shift in reality, stammered, But this is impossible. The Terrans are a minor species. They pose no threat to the Xylar." Lyra silenced him with a wave of her hand. "The evidence is clear, Counselor. The Terrans are a force to be reckoned with. We must reassess our strategy. We must proceed with extreme caution. The message had been delivered. The timeline had been altered. The Xylers' perception of humanity had been subtly but irrevocably changed. But Eris knew that the battle was far from over. The Xyler were a resilient and resourceful species. They would not be easily deterred. Back in the Nevada facility, the sensor readings began to fluctuate wildly. The temporal distortion field around the chronos was destabilizing. "Doctor," a technician shouted, his voice filled with panic. "The temporal anchor is failing. The chronos is about to be pulled back into the primary timeline." Eris felt a surge of adrenaline. The time displacement vessel was not designed for long-term temporal existence. It was a one-way trip, a desperate gamble. "Initiate emergency shutdown sequence," Eris ordered. "Prepare for temporal reintegration." The chronos shuddered violently as it was ripped from the temporal distortion field and slammed back into the primary timeline. The vessel crashed into the Nevada desert, creating a shockwave that rattled the facility. Eris and Mallory rushed to the surface, their hearts pounding in their chests. The Chronos was a mangled wreck, its temporal drive shattered beyond repair. The mission had been a success, but at a terrible cost. As they surveyed the wreckage, a faint signal emanated from the Chronos' artifact. It was a message, a reply from the past. Eris activated the signal, his hands trembling. The message was brief, cryptic, but filled with a chilling resonance. "We understand," the message read, "but your actions have consequences. The future is not yet written." The Xyler Council, grappling with the altered timeline, made a momentous decision. They would not attempt to conquer Earth. Instead, they would establish a cautious alliance, a partnership based on mutual respect and a shared understanding of the dangers of temporal manipulation. They would monitor humanity's progress, offering guidance and assistance, but never interfering with their natural evolution. Centuries passed. Humanity flourished, exploring the stars, forging alliances with other species. The Xyler remained a watchful presence, their relationship with humanity a complex blend of cooperation and caution. The temporal paradoxes that Eris had feared never materialized, but the memory of the Chronos remained a potent reminder of the fragility of time and the unpredictable nature of the universe. One day, a new anomaly was detected, a signal emanating from deep space, a signal that echoed the same archaic energy signature as the Chronos' artifact. The signal was faint, but unmistakable. It was a message from beyond the known universe, a message from a civilization that had mastered time travel millennia ago, a civilization that had vanished without a trace. The message was fragmented, difficult to decipher, but one phrase stood out, a chilling warning that resonated with both humanity and the Xyler. "Beware the echoes of time," the message read, "for they hold the key to both salvation and destruction." The Xyler Council, convened in emergency session, turned to Earth for guidance. They had learned to respect humanity's resilience, their adaptability, their unpredictable capacity for innovation. The future of the galaxy, it seemed, rested on the shoulders of the species they had once so carelessly dismissed. The message prompted a joint human-Xyler expedition to the signal's origin, a journey into the unknown depths of space and time. The expedition was fraught with peril, encountering strange phenomena, battling hostile entities, and unraveling the mysteries of the ancient civilization that had sent the warning. They discovered a vast, abandoned megastructure, a temporal observatory that spanned entire galaxies. The observatory was powered by a singularity, a black hole that warped time and space, allowing the ancient civilization to observe the past, present, and future with unparalleled clarity. Within the observatory, they found a vast archive, a repository of knowledge that contained the history of countless civilizations, including the rise and fall of the time-traveling civilization that had built the structure. They learned that the civilization had not vanished without a trace. They had chosen to erase themselves from existence, to sever their connection to the timeline in order to prevent a cataclysmic event, a temporal paradox that threatened to consume the entire universe. The cataclysmic event was triggered by the misuse of time travel, by the reckless alteration of the past, by the creation of temporal loops that fractured reality. The time-traveling civilization had realized that the only way to prevent the cataclysm was to remove themselves from the equation, to sacrifice their own existence for the sake of the universe. As the human Xylar expedition delved deeper into the archive, they discovered a terrifying truth. The cataclysmic event was not merely a theoretical possibility, it was an inevitability. The seeds of destruction had already been sown, and the universe was slowly, inexorably, heading towards its doom. The only way to prevent the cataclysm was to follow in the footsteps of the ancient civilization, to erase all traces of time travel from the timeline, to sever the connection between the past, present, and future. But such a decision would have profound consequences. It would mean sacrificing all the knowledge they had gained, all the technological advancements they had achieved, all the understanding they had acquired about the nature of time and space. It would mean returning to a state of ignorance, to a universe where time travel was nothing more than a myth, a legend from a forgotten era. The human-Xylar alliance faced an impossible choice: save themselves or save the universe, preserve their knowledge or prevent a cataclysm. The debate raged for months, dividing both humanity and the Xylar. Some argued that they had a responsibility to preserve their knowledge, to use their understanding of time travel to find a way to avert the cataclysm without sacrificing their progress. Others argued that the risks were too great, that the only way to ensure the survival of the universe was to erase all traces of time travel. In the end, it was humanity who made the decisive choice. Inspired by the example of the ancient civilization, they voted to sacrifice their knowledge, to sever the connection to time travel, to prevent the cataclysm. The Xylar, initially hesitant, ultimately agreed to support humanity's decision. They recognized the wisdom of their choice, the selflessness of their sacrifice. Together, the human-Xylar alliance activated the temporal observatory, initiating a process that would erase all traces of time travel from the timeline. The process was slow, painstaking, and fraught with peril. But they persevered, driven by a shared sense of purpose, a determination to save the universe from destruction. As the process neared completion, a final message was received from the ancient civilization, a message of hope, a message of gratitude. "You have made the right choice," the message read. "The universe is in your hands, use your knowledge wisely, protect the balance of time and space, and never forget the lessons of the past." With a final surge of energy, the temporal observatory activated its self-destruct sequence, erasing itself from existence, severing the connection to time travel forever. The universe was saved, but at a terrible cost. Humanity and the Xylar were left with nothing but the memory of what they had lost, the knowledge of what could have been. They had sacrificed their progress, their understanding, their potential for the sake of the universe. But they had also gained something invaluable. They had gained a newfound appreciation for the fragility of time, the importance of balance, and the power of sacrifice. They had learned that true progress was not about mastering the universe, but about understanding it, about respecting it, about protecting it. They had learned that the greatest strength lay not in power, but in humility, in selflessness, in the willingness to sacrifice everything for the greater good. As they returned to their respective worlds, humanity and the Xylar carried with them the lessons of the past, the knowledge of the future, and the hope for a brighter tomorrow. They had been stunned by the Terran warship, by the anomaly they had found, by the discovery of something that shouldn't exist. But they had ultimately been transformed by the experience, by the knowledge they had gained, by the sacrifice they had made. They had learned that the universe was a vast and mysterious place, filled with wonders and dangers, with possibilities and perils. They had learned that the future was not yet written, and that it was up to them to shape it, to create a universe worthy of their sacrifice.